This is the real golden stuff here. Women produce 2 to 3 times as much growth hormone as men do. That means that it is more for you in terms of building muscle about It's different for women to build muscle. Different muscle fiber types, different hormones. At the end of the day, a lot of the systems are still the same that are going to trigger muscle to grow, but if we can advance ourselves in our way of thinking in terms of, hey, how should my training look? How should my diet look? How should my timing look? You might be able to maximize what you are naturally given, because women have different muscle fiber types. They need to be treated slightly different. That comes down to our training, but it also comes down to our nutrition. So let's go ahead and let's break it down. Let's have a little bit of fun with this, and hopefully you'll walk out of this video with a few takeaways that are going to at least shift how you look at your training, your timing, and your eating. I do ask that you hit that red subscribe button, and then please do hit that bell icon. We have new videos coming out every single day, so you don't want to miss a beat. So hit that little bell icon, turn on notifications, and enjoy the ride. Let's go ahead and jump in. So some of this is going to seem a little bit biochemy, but I'm going to make it as simple as I possibly can because I think there's some really good nuggets of information here. Okay, so number one, the thing that women have to remember is that you're going to have a higher triglyceride secretion. What that means is your body naturally utilizes fats a little bit more than men. Okay, so in a fasted state, studies have shown that triglyceride levels can be up to 80% higher in women than in men, meaning your body as a female is liberating fats a lot more because it's more of a fuel source. And a lot of it has to do with your muscle fiber type. We'll talk about that a little bit more in this video, but women have more of a type 1 muscle fiber, which utilizes fat for fuel much more than a type 2 muscle fiber that men have a little bit more of. So when we break this down a little bit more, what you need to know as far as your nutrition is with that is that when you're refeeding after a workout or anything like that, carbs are actually less important for you as a female than they are for men, believe it or not. I'm a firm believer that you don't even need carbs post-workout all the time, but there's some evidence that shows that yes, it could be pretty powerful. But with women, you could probably get away with having about half as many carbohydrates as men and still get the same amount of overall muscle recovery. You see, when refeeding with carbs, less is stored as glycogen than compared to men. So that means when you consume carbohydrates after a workout, less of those carbohydrates are going to your muscle and more of it is just either getting burned or potentially, even worse, stored as fat. Whereas men take those carbohydrates and seem to store them as glycogen a little bit more. Again, probably has to do with the muscle fiber type. So this means that women, naturally, you're going to be more glycogen sparing. It means during your workouts, you actually don't burn through as many carbs. Your body preferentially, or not necessarily preferentially, but will utilize fat a lot. Therefore, it's not burning up the carbs as much. Therefore, you don't need to replenish the carbs as much. You're also more efficient at a process called gluconeogenesis, which means that because your body is utilizing fat so much, it's pretty used to utilizing carbs coming from different substrates. Not going to worry about that today. The result, minimal carbs needed post-workout. Next up, glycolytic capacity. That's how much carbohydrates you can physically hold in your muscles. Kind of piggybacks off of this one, but a couple little new points. Men have a higher capacity to hold carbohydrates. They just do. First of all, muscle size, but also their bodies just seem to suck them up more than women's do. In part, again, because of the type 2 muscle fibers. Men have the type of muscle fibers that respond to what's called anaerobic glycolysis, which is the type of energy that we need carbohydrates for. Men use that more. Women use it less. So that means that women have less of the glycolytic enzymes, less of the enzymes that encourage carbohydrates to be used as a fuel source. Does this mean that everyone should be doing some low carb stuff? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you don't need to be loading up with carbs as much, but more importantly, train at the slightly higher repetition range. Because what that means is your body is not going to tap into the carbohydrates as much. So if you're trying to get the best result possible, women actually do respond well with slightly higher reps. Now, there's some studies that show that rep range doesn't really matter between men and women, but then there's other studies that show that it does. Based on the evidence here, I'm going to take the side of women probably going a little bit higher rep. Does that mean that you need to be doing 18 to 24 reps every time you go to the gym? No, I just mean maybe 12 reps versus 8. Women tend to have a little bit less of a central nervous system capacity for weight training, which we'll talk about in a minute too. This all circles back to our nutrition too, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Now, training develops type 1 muscle fibers in women, And then in men, it tends to develop type 2A muscle fibers. So as we become more conditioned and as we're training more, women tend to see more development of the type 1 muscle fibers, which are the endurance muscle fibers, the higher rep muscle fibers. That's kind of interesting. So basically, if you train hard, your body builds more endurance muscles, which explains why they don't grow as much. Type 1 muscle fibers don't get really big, but they can get super duper strong. It explains why some women don't build a ton of muscle, but dang, are they strong, right? It's just because they build and they just enhance these type 1s, whereas men grow more type 2, okay? So it still grows, but it needs specific training, which again, whoops, I spelled training wrong there. Anyhow, I guess my brain needs training. Anyhow, the point is that you need to be able to train within that rep range that's going to grow the specific muscle fiber type that you're good at. Then we come back to the central nervous system. Women, your central nervous system is not designed for as much, not to say that it's not, as much explosivity as men's. Point is, the central nervous system just operates a tiny bit different. You are much more of a go-getter when it comes down to just being able to grind and have stamina. Men are a little bit more like explosive and then fall on their face. Okay, doesn't mean that you can't have properties of each. Point is you need to train within the realm that you're going to get the most benefit. Okay, we always say feed the stallion, starve the pony. Okay, what that means is feed what you're good at. And don't worry about feeding something you're bad at because life is too short. Focus on the stuff you're good at. You have type 1 muscle fibers. Focus on those. Go a little bit higher rep. Go to exhaustion. Go to lactic acid burn. Then we move into protein requirements, okay? Now we're getting into a little bit more of what you should be eating and when. And by the way, I will go ahead and say I have some specific female women grocery bundles down below in the Thrive Market link. So Thrive Market's an online membership-based grocery store. They are a supporter of this channel, but this is super, super relevant because I have like hormone optimization bundles. Long story short, it's basically like being able to go grocery shopping with me so that I can help you choose the kinds of foods to get. So I have some female specific ones that are really awesome and the groceries get delivered right to your doorstep. They've got a plethora of other things. You don't have to just go with the bundles that I choose. Really cool. I highly recommend you check out Thrive Market if you want to start getting your groceries and your pantry goods and all that stuff online. Check them out down below in the description. There's a special link down below. Really cool stuff. So speaking of all the food and stuff, so protein requirements. Women oxidize less protein. That means that they don't burn as much protein. So you're not burning through it. So you don't really need quite as much. However, you have less leucine oxidation during your workout, meaning you're breaking down less protein, less muscle during your workout. All a good thing, right? You have more fat utilization, which means you're carb sparing. So you're not only sparing protein, you're sparing carbohydrates. So what should you do? You are better off having periodic bits of protein throughout the day than you are consolidating your protein post-workout. A lot of people consolidate their protein post-workout, and here's what it does. It gets you just the amount that you need, but then the extra ends up going to storage or burn for energy. Why waste it? You're going to have a better effect having a regular amount of protein after your workout, and then a regular amount of protein a few hours later, and a regular amount of protein a few hours later. And like in Thrive Market, the snacks and stuff I have below, I've got a lot of high protein snacks that you can have throughout the course of the day. So perfect for that. So less about protein post-workout, more about consistent protein. Now let's move into growth hormone and estrogen and this stuff because this is the real golden stuff here. Women produce 2 to 3 times as much growth hormone as men do. That means that it is more for you in terms of building muscle about getting the right growth hormone activation, the right mTOR activation, and just the right protein synthesis than it is hormonal. You don't need to be worrying about testosterone. There's studies that show that testosterone has very little effect in women when it comes to building muscle. In fact, so this study that's published in the FASB journal, it took a look at female androgen knockout mice. That means they took mice that were women that had no androgen receptors. They knocked out their androgen receptors. So testosterone was totally null and void. Well, guess what? No muscle impairment on those mice. I know it's mice, but still relevant. Okay? No muscle impairment even without any androgen receptors, showing that when it comes down to females, testosterone plays very, very little role in your overall muscle. It's more growth hormone related. So maximize your growth hormone levels. How are some ways that you can do that? Well, of course, training intensity, but also periodic fasting. Periodic fasting is going to make you more sensitive to having a spike in growth hormone, but it's also going to improve growth hormone because your body gets a chance to rest. There are some studies that show that you get these exorbitant, like 2,000% increases. That's very acute settings, and I don't want to go down that data rabbit hole. Point is, fasting is good for growth hormone levels, and it allows you to get these acute bouts of protein synthesis when you do eat. So try doing 16-hour fasts and then working out towards the end of your fast and get a nice little spike of growth hormone that way, because that's what's going to help females build muscle versus the testosterone, maybe a little bit more so in men. And also, just FYI, I have intermittent fasting bundles with Thrive Market you can check out too. Now the big one, maximizing the phases of the month. Maximize your estrogen cycles. First couple of weeks of your cycle, you are more estrogen dominant. The back half, you're more progesterone dominant. Estrogen is not always bad. Estrogen is very anti-catabolic. It helps you from breaking down protein, okay? It helps you from breaking down muscle. It aids in recovery significantly, okay? So what that means is you're going to reduce your protein turnover. You're going to reduce the amount that your body is burning of your protein, so you actually get a chance to get into a positive nitrogen balance. So use the first 2 weeks of your cycle for more mass building, heavier training, harder lifts, more protein, because you have a chance to actually build muscle during this time in a very strong hormonal way. Actually, your body is allowing you to make that happen. Plus, recovery is going to be better. You're not going to get as sore. Okay, you're going to feel better. Then you use the back half when your progesterone levels are a little bit higher to focus more on endurance and a little bit more on fat loss, because you have less of the estrogen at that point in time, and you can start focusing a little bit more on maybe the adrenaline specific moves like the high intensity interval training and the endurance work that's going to allow you to burn a little bit more fat. So you divide your month into muscle building, a little less cardio, and then cardio-centric, and a little less muscle building. And that way you can focus on just taking advantage of where your body is at a specific point in time. So I hope this helps, gives you some takeaways. Just to recap, minimal carbs needed post-workout. It's actually more likely to help you gain fat than anything else. Okay, so still have protein after workout. Train slightly higher reps, okay? Then you want to, again, train slightly higher reps there. You want to have protein spread throughout the course of the day versus right after your workout. Periodic fasting, training in a fasted state to spike growth hormone, and train during the first 2 weeks of your cycle to build more muscle during that time. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.